First of all, I just want to say congratulations to Joel. That moment when he's crying is pretty incredible. And as a former teammate of his, as someone who was around him for 2 years, and knowing how much he cares, and knowing how much he cares about competition and greatness and the pursuit of that, it was a great moment for me to watch. And as a friend, I'm just so happy for him, and to have it happen with his teammates and the staff and everyone. Just a really cool moment for anybody that has played with Joel Embiid. It's like one of us won it or something, because we know how much this guy cares and how much he wants to be great. And it's just, that to me was awesome. So I just wanted to just acknowledge that.
JJ,
yeah, go ahead.
JJ, can I say this real quick?
Yeah.
As a guy that wrote in Philadelphia for 17 years for the Philadelphia Inquirer, one of the great moments I've ever witnessed was when Allen Iverson accepted, with the league MVP award in front of that crowd. As beautiful as that scene is, and it's everything you just said, that moment, you think he's emotional now. Wait until he shows up to the Wells Fargo Arena for Game 3, and they let him know, and they bring that trophy to him in front of those fans in Philadelphia. That's going to be a real special moment. It really is.
To think about where he came from, it's absolutely incredible. JJ, thank you for taking the time to do that.
So to answer the question, I'm not sure that the Grizzlies are making Dillon Brooks the scapegoat, but whoever put that language and approved that language in the tweet, yeah, that person wants to make Dillon Brooks the scapegoat. The reality is the Grizzlies have other problems besides Dillon Brooks. And whether they choose to bring him back or don't choose, or whatever it may be, I can't remember a time in my now 17 years, either being in the NBA or covering the NBA, where we're in the second round of the playoffs, the day of a game where two of the greatest players ever are getting ready to square off, and we're just tweeting out things for engagement. Like, is that where we're at? Is that where, actually, you know what? I'd be willing to bet that language didn't come from the Grizzlies. Look, this is the problem. This is the problem, right? It's agenda-driven media. I have a problem with it. The reality is Dillon Brooks hurts them offensively. If you want to go in another direction, that's fine. That is fine. Do the antics, did that hurt them? I actually don't know. I don't know how much that hurt them. There's other problems in roster construction, guys being out. Like, there's other issues besides Dillon Brooks and him poking a bear. The entire culture around that team has changed a lot in the last 2 years. I actually remember this. When I was in the bubble, there were two teams that had FU written on their forehead walking around. You see them at the hotel, you see them at practice, you see them at games. There were two teams that I was like, oh, these guys actually want to be here. And it was the Memphis Grizzlies and the Miami Heat. The culture has changed a little bit. There is semantics. Is Dillon Brooks the only one that's a part of that? Like, to me, he's not the scapegoat. And whoever agenda it was to tweet that out, I got a problem with that. And if you ask Dillon Brooks' teammates, they ride with him. They ride with him. It's okay to go in another direction. I don't understand why you have to kick a guy while he's down. For engagement? Really?
Well, here's my, first of all, for the most part, you're right. There are people in the media who are guilty of exactly what you just said. There is no doubt about that. You ain't gonna mention any names and stuff like that, but there are people, who do that. So you're not wrong. What I will say to you, as a guy that's covered the league for decades, as a former beat writer, insider, all of that stuff, always remember this, JJ. Don't ever assume that somebody is just saying something and they didn't get it from someplace.
Oh, no. Hold on. Sure. He got it from someplace. I'm not.
Okay.
There's no debate with me there.
Okay.
Somebody said that.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Right. I'm
He's
talking about somebody within the organization.
No. He's a man of integrity. I'm not saying he made that up at all, Stephen.
Okay.
But I have a hard time believing it came from. I have a hard time believing it came from within a higher up in the Grizzlies organization.
Well, I will say this to you, and that's where I will challenge you on that. Never forget what I'm about to tell you. There is someone in every single organization who chirps. They'll smile in your face. they'll smile in everybody's face. And then behind y'all back, they will talk about people like dogs. I'm telling you, it's been in existence for decades. And that is something that is undeniable. There is no one with a straight face that would sit up there and deny what I just said, because it happens all the time. And so what I'm saying to you is that when you look at the Memphis Grizzlies, somebody within that organization said that. I'm just telling you what I know. Now, having said all of that, to me, Dillon Brooks is not a scapegoat, but I'll tell you this much. If you're the Memphis Grizzlies, who, by the way, tried to resign him not once but a couple of times this season, and obviously he turned down, reportedly, he had turned down some extension offers or whatever. When you have a history of chirping and talking nonsense, and then you go out and you get your ass kicked, that's something that provokes a change. And when you look at what Memphis is doing, yeah, from a basketball perspective, you're absolutely right. There's parts that didn't work. You got to alter it to some degree, modify some things. Totally agree with you. But the other side to it is that when you're about that bluster, but you don't back it up, that is an indictment against you. Dillon Brooks shot 31% from the field, 23% from three-point range. Didn't have that great of a season. We were talking about that throughout this year. And he seemed to have tailed off, that he seemed to be a bit more blustered in actual game. And so if you're the Memphis Grizzlies and you've got Ja Morant, we good in the West. Even though Steven Adams goes down and Brian Clark goes down, and if they were healthy, I think, who knows, we might have seen a different outcome, okay? The reality is that from a culture perspective, and you know this because you've been a part of numerous organizations, you know when you're walking around with a certain bravado and you don't have the commitment to back it up. Yeah, you show up on the court when the buzzer sounds and the lights come on and it's time. But the work that you need to put in, the focus that you need to exercise, the discipline that you need to exercise prior to games being played is absent. That's when you start looking at little things like what Dillon Brooks did in the postseason, because you're thinking about what led to him thinking that was okay, and how they ultimately ended up performing collectively. And as an organization, you're saying, we got to do something about that. That is not beyond the pale, is all I'm trying to say. I wouldn't go any further than that, because for the most part, I agree with you. And I don't blame you for being pissed off, because there are people in the media that are every bit as guilty of exactly what you're saying. You're absolutely right.
I just want to say one thing, and I'll let Doggy go. Look, I think it's tough to be the villain. And I think it's tough to play that role. Draymond has talked about that very openly. I'll say this about Dillon Brooks. He's going to talk to a lot of teams this summer, and maybe they'll ask questions about the antics, and maybe we'll have to, commit to being a little more square or whatever it may be. He's going to help a team next year. He's going to help a playoff team most likely.
Right.
Like Dillon Brooks is not a bum. Like a lot of people think. I just want to say that.
He's not
a bum.
I have some breaking news here. Game 2, obviously Sixers Celtics. That's tonight at 8 Eastern. And good news for Philly. This season's MVP, Joel Embiid, will return for Game 2 against the Celtics, barring a setback. Sources confirmed to ESPN. JJ, Joel Embiid, good to go. Your thoughts?
Well, this was a matchup that we were all really excited about, and it lost some of its luster with him getting hurt. The fact that he's back in the lineup, man, let's go. This Celtics Sixers series could be awesome, especially with the way the Sixers closed out that Game 1 and the way James Harden played. I'm excited. This is great news.
Oh, I think so too. Puts a lot of pressure on the Celtics too. You figured if they didn't have Embiid tonight, they'd easily get the 1-1. Now with Embiid, a little different wrinkle. I don't think a lot of folks thought that Boston would lose this series. Now they could. Great story for the NBA to have him back. And he was very excited at the end of that first game. He was jumping up and down and everything else. Good to see.
I think it is a mistake. I don't believe that Embiid should play tonight. I think that you got the game you wanted in Boston. I think that Boston is desperate. They come out here tonight. And I think that if you're Embiid, to me, I would use that additional few days as rest and come back ready for Game 3, ready to go the rest of this series. Me personally, because of his health, his shaky history of health, I understand that some people it might not make a big difference. Game 2, Game 3, what's the big difference? Me personally, I think with the Sixers having gotten Game 1, I personally think he should wait, miss Game 2, and then come back ready Game 3 and do his thing. That's just my personal opinion, but, you know, it is what it is.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.